to yours truly, Alison, a 20-something-year-old's perspective. Let's get into the video. Today I have a very special guest. I have none other than Gus Nyberg, relationship expert, love guru, whatever you want to call him. Welcome, Gus. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
I'm going to talk about Gus's book. So my first question is, it's a really interesting book because you cover all types of topics. So finances, sex, cross-cultural differences, disabilities, neurodivergence. What made you want to write a book about dating?
I saw a lot of relationships failing. So actually some people make books from like seeing success and they want to share the success with people. But this was actually built from seeing failures. I wouldn't want to call it failures, but failures in the sense that relationships that ended. Because of different divorces that I saw in like 2019, 2017, where marriages ended within like 6 years, I was actually like, this is very close to home. So that could be me. I'm basically seeing myself in things which I never really imagined would be me. But when you kind of see that it's around family as well, then you start to realize, okay, you need to understand what's happening here. Because avoiding this statistic is not to do with luck. You need to plan. And so in my studying of the Word of God, I was like, okay, God, show me everything. Not like something, show me everything I need to know, everything that there is to know regarding marriage. So I just started to read everything, the Bible, lean on my theology degree, interview couples that I actually admire who've been in it, and I interviewed a lot of them to make the book. And I just started to make downloads and notes.
And it's interesting because dating is not actually in the Bible. You started it off from like, I don't want to fail like other people have failed, but what was the conversation with God? Was it that you were dating and then you wanted to know how to date well? Because it's not something that's spoken about in the Bible, or even in the church, it's barely encouraged. It's kind of like, get married without foundation for dating.
Yeah. So it's an interesting thing, and I think for me, it was more so looking at my whole dating experience. There's lessons that I would have learned, but it almost felt as if there was a gap, like you mentioned. You know what you've experienced because you've lived through it, and you've been a Christian for a long time. But because you're not taught around this area by the church, theologically, I felt as if there's a gap, and because I also have studied theology, I thought this is not normal. You should be able to know how to build up towards marriage. So if you make marriage a big thing in the church, which the church does say is a big thing, how is it that there's no build up to it? Everything in life that is important, they literally have a prerequisite of you do this first, then you know you're ready.
Yeah.
So learning to drive, you don't just get on the road. But
do
I feel
lesson, and do like the theory. But well, with dating, some people do courtship.
Yeah.
That's what they're leading up to it is.
Courting is interesting, so I'm more against the phrases.
You did actually mention that in the book, actually.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm against the phrases because I feel as if everyone means different things by using the same word. So dating does not mean the same thing to everybody. Courting does not mean the same thing to everybody. I realize the most important thing is that we describe the stages that we're going through and focus on the stages and actually communicate less around the label and more around the stages that we're in. That's when you have more clarity in terms of how to date. So I think in the book, one thing that I really cover is breaking down the stages of how a single person goes, meets somebody else, how you select, how you pick, how you get with somebody, how your relationship is run, how you figure out the timelines until you get to engagement and marriage.
And I think that's key because nowadays they're speaking and then people exclusively speak and then they'll be dating and then they'll be exclusively dating.
Yo.
To me, it seems like there's a lot of avoidance to actually committing to somebody. Fear of attaching a label to it because that makes it serious. Like I said this actually to one of my girlfriends, like we were talking about that, like if you date a guy and he's like, I don't want to give a label. You know I'm doing it. It shows intent, but I don't need to put a label. But then if label is so significant, why don't you just put it? Because you know that it means something. So either way, it's like people just want to like cut corners or they want to avoid attachment. So definitely like it's something that you need to kind of nail down at the beginning. What does this person view as dating? What do they think about talking and like how long are you going to date ideally? Like I feel like those things should be set in stone in the early stages.
Yes, and what you said there, you brought my full thoughts full circle. I'm against the labels when people just throw it out there. I'm for the labels when it works in the way that you just described. So everyone can embrace that dating or relationship and exclusive. They're words that we accept in the language. However, two people have to decide what it means to them. I think that's where the disconnect is. When I know what it means to me, but we've not discussed what it means to you. Yeah. And then we start using the same word, we can be on a different page straight away. But it's like the guy said, oh, this is going to be my wife, but the girl's thinking, I'm thinking about whether day two is like You know? So you need to know what it means. So I think what you've just said is exactly it.
So one thing I love about this book is underlining foundation of building covenant capacity, kind of having a goal in mind, and we're both intentionally working towards it. And something you mentioned in the book is about setting non-negotiables, and you actually said like it's not about making a list of non-negotiables that make you undateable.
Right.
So my question is, how do you know like when a non-negotiable that deserves to be the non-negotiable list and when it's really just non-negotiable disguised as a preference?
Right, so I would say biblical principles is where I like to work from. Biblical dating framework, kind of to give my. So biblically, let's work from the agreement of oneness is important. Can two walk together lest they be agreed, and the two shall become one. So we see there's a theme of oneness where God is saying, be like the Trinity, be like how I am. So anything that is hindering oneness, that's something that you need to look at, like how much damage is it doing to the oneness for both of you. So heavily destructive behavior is not good. Lack of accountability is not good because it kind of just shows it's going to be difficult for us to merge because you can't recognize when you're wrong. You're a bit resistant to taking feedback and things like that. But the key non-negotiables that I would say, anything that is sin,
should be a
that's where you need to start from because that's going to hinder both of you, even in terms of you being both submitted to God and trying to create a God-fearing marriage. How can you do that when you both sin together? It's difficult. I would say make sure that that's there. Number two, beauty is an important thing. God created aesthetics.
Yes.
A non-negotiable is lack of attraction.
Right.
That should be a non-negotiable for sure. But you need to check yourself. And this is where all of us need to check ourselves. Because from my experience, when I've been more worldly or living in the world, the taste buds that you get from being in the world, they become a real thing. And when you now give your life to God and you're more submitted to God and you're trying to follow what the Spirit does, your taste buds start to shift. So I would say every individual has to be open to actually ask themselves, the things that I like, is it because Spirit-driven or is it heavily flesh-driven? If you find yourself being heavily flesh-driven, then clearly you got that from somewhere which is not the leadership of the Spirit. So that's something which I would say is very important. So 6 foot, that's not something which has to be there. You know, short kids.
It's a preference.
It's a preference. It's a heavy preference. Because you can't tell me that a God-fearing woman of God who submits to Christ is willing to lose the guy who's ideal for them because he wasn't 6 foot. And that's the kind of thinking I'm talking about. So it's very much a nice to have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think for somebody who's writing their non-negotiables list, it's remembering that like the non-negotiables are things to be tested throughout. Like sometimes people want it to be like, I'm seeing this person tick, 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 tick.
Right.
But things get revealed as they go on.
Absolutely.
Like for example, if you're a Christian, one of the things on your non-negotiables would be no sex till marriage. So if you are aspiring for someone who's sexually pure, because you're sexually pure, that's going to be on your non-negotiables.
Yes.
So then if somebody is saying, yeah, that's cool, and then as the relationship progresses, you're seeing a different side to them, or you're seeing that they're not actually believing what was agreed before, then that shows that they're not meeting that non-negotiable. Because even that standard is going to be tested. Like it's not just going to be a tick list. Like at the beginning, I meet somebody and they say, yeah, I don't want to have sex till marriage. Tick, 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 tick. You know, like these things you continually seeing how this person shows up.
And it kind of reminds me of school, like grades. When you're trying to get into like a university, they're not just going to ask you about how you feel and what you think. Eventually, they care about you, but they're also like, what's the grades? Because the grades is like, this is proven. Yeah. This is what you've done, and it's your body of work over time. So they want to see that you're not just you got your first A last week, but everything else before that was a U. They want to see progress. So they'll say, that's a good A, but we need to see more of these first. So I would say relationship is very much the same. Analyze their demonstrated capacity over a period of time.
Yeah, definitely. Like when you're filling out the UCAS application, they're working on your predicted, but if you don't get the predicted, then you're not going to get into uni.
And you can only predict based on what someone has really done. So that's what I'd say for us. We have to do that. Look at potential, don't fall in love with it. Demonstrated capacity.
So when it comes to assessing covenant capacity, one of the things you talked about was endurance, vulnerability. You talked about the 3 pillars of marriage, which we're gonna get onto a bit later. But what are some healthy boundaries that somebody can set in the beginning stages when getting to know somebody new or when dating to start beginning to assess covenant capacity?
I would say submission is a big word. The issue is that people use that word heavily when it comes to man-woman interaction.
Right.
And it makes women feel more tense because they know what's coming. Or is he going to be a patriarchal guy? How's this going to work? But I would say submission is a key thing for both of you to analyze in terms of submission to Christ. So like you said, early on in the conversations, It's like a non-negotiable which is almost unsaid, but you need to kind of come in there, analysing when you talk about spiritual topics, how open are they in terms of flexibility? Ask questions around what's happening within their life. What have you worked on? What are you working on a light level? We don't have to share everything, but if somebody's not got anything that they're working on, I believe you need to have a non-negotiable as a Christian to say,
what does that mean?
Caution.
How can you not have something you're working on?
Do you understand? But you'd be surprised. This is extremely common. Like you'd even say, people say, what do you mean? And it's like, what do you mean, what do I mean?
Yeah. Because like even if you're trying to figure out what you're doing next in life, that's working on something, right?
Yeah,
So
you're trying to figure something out. I need to know that you're on a journey, especially for men.
Right.
Because if you're coming to say, I want to take this woman on a journey and I want to be the leader, how people want to grab leadership with bravado. Okay, cool, you're the leader, where are we going?
Yeah.
A man needs to be able to answer that. And a woman should also be able to answer, because if you're showing that, oh, I'm going to follow, I'm also have submission, show me that you're submitted to God. That's basically what everyone needs to show. So you need to be able to at least articulate it. So I'd say anyone who can't do that, non-negotiable, like you need to be analysing that very, very early. Say, other than the basics, no sex and things like that, make sure every stage earns the next stage. I think that's important. It's not a rule, but it's
important.
I would say it's something to consider. Some people say, no, I don't want to do the talking and blah, 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 let me just go on the first date. Okay, but what is that doing to you over time? Because if you end up meeting someone you've not really talked, a woman might then feel upset, I've wasted my time, can I forget about men, this is hopeless. But you didn't follow the right process. You put yourself in a place where you got excited for a day, for a guy you don't know. Within 5 minutes, he showed you all the signs that were red. You then had to endure that, and you've already made yourself look nice. Make boundaries for yourself where you're saying, I will not invest more than this person deserves.
I think that's one of the things I actually loved about the book. It's the idea that date matters. Dating well matters to God. And I think because it's not something that's discussed in the church, because it's not something in the Bible, there is a great lack of accountability when it comes to dating and how we date. This links to something that you've said before elsewhere. We're all image bearers. Like God cares about how I treat a fellow image bearer.
Right.
It's something I realized as well in my own dating experiences. Like it matters to God who I marry because it matters whose child I'm going to have.
Yeah.
Like one of the purposes of marriage is to create godly offspring.
Yeah.
Is to leave behind a legacy of faith, to pass that on to your children, and they do the same and they do the same. Like God wants to be intimate with his creation. He wants to do a work in this earth, right? And so if you're thinking about it from that far away, it matters who I date. Because it matters who I marry. And it matters who I'm gonna have, like, do you know what I mean? Like we can't afford to be so like blasé about things like that. You know what I mean? Like even in the beginning stages of, you know, how am I gonna talk to this person? What boundaries am I setting when we're dating, when we're getting to know each other? Like it needs to be something that you're thinking about, you know? You have a plan.
Yeah, so that's something which I do mention in the book, like a horse goes before a cart. Like that's just how it works, and it sounds like common sense. But we usually say things like, oh duh, of course it does. But why do we not do that with our actual life? And that's why sex and things like deeper intimate interactions goes after the like establishment of alignment in terms of calling. Because once you have that, that's what pulls everything forward. And that's when people get things in the wrong order, and then you're wondering, why things not moving forward? Well, a cart can't pull a horse, that's why we're not moving forward. But you've put sex in front of the alignment, it's hard to pull the alignment. How do you do it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
What is covenant capacity?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So covenant capacity is, and I realized the first time I wrote this book, I sent it to my mentor, she was like, you've not even defined what it is. So covenant capacity is essentially the ability to stay even when everything is telling you to quit and leave. It's very simple, and it sounds simplistic, but when you break it down, it's not. But it's the ability to do that. And the reason why this was made is because when I interviewed the couples that I really admire, who've gone through up and down, but they're still together, and the couples who actually, or individuals who divorced, there was no difference in terms of the experiences that they had. I'm wondering if you've had the same experiences, why did you divorce and why did you not? Covenant capacity. One couple literally said, I heard someone need to shout out to them. She said that there's no leaving here. They both agreed. We're in a house, there is no law.
There's no bag.
It just starts burning up. She literally says, we're burning up in here together. And she says, the moment you have that, the only way is forward, because there is no escape hatch. So covenant capacity is that mindset where once we're in, we're in. I'm not looking for an escape clause. I'm not looking for sign this contract, do this, just in case. There's no just in case. It's now me and Jude. Until one of us dies. So covenant capacity for me, I realized that's what it is, because that's what God does for us. God never leaves us. He said, I will never leave you nor forsake you. So God is saying, come what may, I know you're going to do it. I know you're going to sin. I'm telling you now, I will always be here. Honor capacity is having the ability or building the ability to honor that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because marriage is about reflecting the covenant love of Christ for his bride. It's not just about like making you feel good or like being happy or like stuff like that. Like a lot of people even in the church don't know that or don't acknowledge marriage as that type of symbol before God, like how sacred it is and how important it is to God. So with that basis, then you can meet somebody with the same mindset that's like, we're in this. There's no back door. Like you're not leaving, I'm not leaving.
Yeah.
Like we're in this. For the things that you can't prepare for, if we're in agreement and we're both going to the same source, we're both having that same goal in mind, when it's really hard, then you have a higher chances of sticking to it. Because it's not you can't prepare for everything because like you don't know. Right? And it's gonna be the grace that carries you through. But how we're assessing in the beginning is important to the decisions that are made later on.
That's why submission comes back into the conversation, which I mentioned earlier. Because the Bible says, the Spirit works within us to will and to do His good works. And so if someone's not submitted to Christ, that power to will and to do what God would want is not there. So two people, it doesn't matter how imperfect they are, the level of surrenderedness will determine your ability to go far. Because when things go wrong, both of you say, okay, let's go talk to the Father, really read the Bible, because we both submit to it. What should we do? We're both humble enough to say, God is bigger than me and you. I'm going to fix myself. You're going to fix yourself. You can improve.
I want to talk about male loneliness. You'll find as a woman, when you're dating, you can date a man and then just because you're showing active listening skills or he feels comfortable around you, is secure enough to tell you things that he doesn't tell other people, he mistakes that for attachment. Or for, a sense of like, this is my person. And it's just like, no, just providing you a listening ear, right? Yeah. It's something that's talked about social media in real life. Like people who's like, oh, women's relationships are so fickle, you guys are so fake, you need to be more like us men, and yeah. But I've always wondered, so maybe you can answer as a guy, I've always wondered, like, if male relationships are so strong, why else do a lot of men not have people that they can open up to until they meet a girl?
It's a good question. I can't answer everything. There's patterns that I've seen amongst my space where I'm like, this is the issue around the loneliness aspect. This is where this is coming from. We can interact and joke around about a lot of things and joke, but we might not really talk about our real lives and our real emotions with each other often. I think that's where the loneliness slowly creeps in. And in a way, I'm also even thinking like, I'm kind of guilty because you heard the conversation I had just before with one of my closest friends. It's his birthday today and we joked endlessly. How much time did I spend saying, bro, I'm proud of you, everything that you're doing, you're a dad, you're leading a family. These are my thoughts.
But maybe you would have if I was in the room.
No, it wouldn't be the same. It would have been the same. It would have been the same. And when he calls me, it's the same thing. Right? It's only one of us, Chris. Shout out to Chris. I'm different. He actually says things and it's like, this feels uncomfortable to me. And I asked myself recently, why do I feel slightly strange every time he says, proud of you, the things that you're doing is big. You're not a small timer. He speaks life. And it's like, he's like a parent. And I was like, it's not normal for me to feel abnormal that he's saying that. Exactly. And that explains the loneliness. We don't actually connect on the levels that matter. And so when we come across women, I feel as if there's some kind of complex where it might link you back psychologically to your mum. Your mum is one who's very much deeply like that. And we might not experience that from our fathers much. So I think when men meet women, there's an aspect which might be a small reminder of their mum. Not that they want you to mother them, but you're a small reminder or they expect that from
a woman.
And it's like, she's not your mum though. Your mum will love you for everything. You can go to prison,
Yeah.
She says he's a good boy. You didn't deserve it, right? Your wife is not here. The person you're dating is not here for that. Therefore, you can't have that level of attachment. So I think for us as men, to deal with loneliness, we need to actually make communities where you say what's in your heart from an emotional place more. I feel as if women do that very well. Which is why some men may say, oh, women talk about each other. But I'm like, there's pros and cons to everything.
Yeah.
Them talking is from an emotional place. That's why they can love you, and one day they might be vexed, they might say something else, but it's the positivity of I express myself so people kind of know what they really mean. But when there's no emotion said for the positive things, men may know that if we're beefing, that's clear. But we also don't look at the positive things, and that's where I think the loneliness comes from. Telling someone I'm proud of you, asking them how are you doing, is everything okay, and they actually feel comfortable to say everything is not okay. I don't feel like I know where I'm going. What is leadership? A lot of men don't actually know, how do I lead? These issues are coming from, especially the black community. The stats may have shifted a little bit. 50% of black households are single parent. If you were to look at the US, UK, black community,
that's
50% is high. It's extremely high. It's the highest of any race. Of that 50%, 90% led by the woman. Which means a lot of boys that you see walking around and men, they're raised by women. They're not used to the embrace of a man. They've never experienced it. They don't know what it's like. They don't know the leadership of a man. They don't know the warmth of a father's words. Even if it's not a hug, for your dad to say, I'm proud of you, son, with a hand on your back, will make you feel some kind of way, emotionally. If you've never experienced that, and you might also have a mum, not saying that all single mothers are like this, but if you also have a mum who's got negative things to say because the dad who's not pulling his weight, it then works opposite, where I've never felt a man's love from my father, and also, I've also just been hearing complaints about how bad you guys are. That does not help me become a man who's in the community and I'm feeling love with other men. That's where we end up just bantering. And I think it's almost like you're laughing or partying the pain away, but you're not aware that it's there.
I like what you said, because there is this thing of men even knowing how to relate to their sons in a way that embraces that vulnerability. Yeah, like that's just like, I love you. Like,
My dad hugged me last month and it felt strange.
Did it?
I'm 32. I think I've been hugged 2 or 3 times. It felt strange. Because we don't do it. That's weird, isn't it? That's not good.
It should be more normalized.
It should be a lot more.
But that's a lot of people. I was saying this to my dad the other day. Like, my dad is a girl dad, so he has 2 girls. And I was like, you are the ultimate girl dad. Like, right. He's got this softness about him, this nurturing about him. And you talk about this in the book, that like, if you're going to be a husband, you need to be able to tap into a nurturing side anyway.
Yeah.
Right? Never mind raising women. I feel like men find it maybe it's also easier to tap into that side because it's in them. They find it more natural to tap into that side within them when they're around women or when they have kids.
Like last night I was preaching about the heart of God. I feel as if the more I've understood the heart of God, the emotional side of how God is with us, it's brought out my softer side as a man. Because if God being so powerful and mighty is also able to have text in the Bible where he's like, this is how I feel towards you as my people, who am I?
Yeah.
You get me? And I can't sit there in bravado to be like, I don't have emotions. That doesn't make you masculine. Because God is not feminine because he has these emotions. That would be a crazy thing to say.
Yeah.
And so I'm realizing that maybe the reality is not enough of us as men are intimate enough in our relationship with God. And I think a lot of things come from there. Once you start to see God in his fullness, strong, powerful, I'm sad, I'm upset, I'm telling you how I feel, I'm proud of you, I know how you feel when you're going through your pain, don't worry, I'll carry you through, that will be better. Then I feel as if that's how God is parenting us. Once you understand how God is parenting you as a grown man, you can parent a young boy. So I think it's showing, the cracks are showing.
Definitely. And you can see how it impacts people in the church. Like, church is filled with women, and there's this over-feminization, I think, in the church, in how we approach God. Probably you're gonna have to come back and have to do another whole topic about that, because I think that's why a lot of men don't come to church, because I think there's this over-feminization, particularly in the church. Love isn't feminine.
Yes.
So men are not being taught how to love God or receive love as a man. Like, it's almost synonymous with womanhood, but that's not true. Love, the principle, is from God who exists in the masculine. So love in itself is not feminine. I want to touch on the pillar of permanence. Something you mentioned about finding contentment as well is going to increase the ability to stay in this covenant, right? You talk about not looking around and thinking what if, and thinking, oh no, like maybe I shouldn't have made this decision, like that regret. And it made me think of a conversation I had with a friend a few years back. And he was saying to me, you know what, Alison, like every guy who gets married always thinks in the back of his mind, what if? But before he gets married, he's always thinking, what if? To me, that doesn't make sense. Why would you marry somebody that you're not sure? And he was just like, no, every guy thinks, what if? But my thinking was, I feel like you can be maybe unsure about your ability to be a husband or a wife, or, you know, like, do I have what it takes? Perhaps doubting, but why would you doubt the person? You probably shouldn't be marrying them if you're not sure about the person. So, just in terms of contentment, and in the pillar of permanence, in having a healthy, long-lasting marriage, what does that look like?
I would say, based on everything I've experienced in some recent conversations, how you spend your singleness is very important. That's when the book, I call it a boot camp, rather than a waiting room, where you're sitting around waiting to just see somebody. No, you're training for something. So, training for permanence, I would say there's important things to know. Spend your singleness, also interacting with the opposite sex, understand what you like on a general level. What do you like, what don't you like? Understand that, because you'd be surprised not enough people do this. Once you understand that, at least you know, this is more my type, this is really far-fetched, it's not really for me. That's on a general physical, personality level, how you live your life, fine. Don't hold on to it too much, but be aware of it. Moving into the more serious stuff, I would then say spiritual alignment becomes very important again. You need to know what your purpose is. One thing that is guaranteed to stay is your calling and your purpose, because it comes directly from God. God controls that. He gave you your spiritual gifts. He knows what your path is. In terms of you ministering, if you want to do that, which we all should be, that's guaranteed. It doesn't fade away. Everything else can fade away. Something which I think people have not accepted. And it's a big topic, but it's extremely important. Once you understand what's permanent and what's not, you can then steward permanence better. Because there's traits that are falling in line permanent, which can be controlled, which is your calling. Submit to God and He'll continue to make your path straight. When it comes to your looks, I don't know what's going to happen within 5 years. You can focus on looks and say, okay, this woman is stunning. 1 year into your marriage, God forbid, she gets burnt, she falls down the stairs, she has a bad injury, nothing happens. She looks different for the rest of God forbid. But when you speak to people who've gone through this, you realize that it's very possible. The best thing is, I even preached about this 2 nights ago, God forbid zones, get rid of them because they be happening. Once you understand, I would like to have this woman, she's stunning. I've accepted that her beauty might not stay this way forever. However, we are aligned in terms of who she is, what God has called her to, what God has called me to, and the journey that we are on together, which gets better as we go because of service and personality and characters joining together. Those kind of things tend to stay. So I would say permanence is more likely to be held when you actually have the right categories you've fallen in love with and you honor life for what it is. Yeah. Somebody's can change physically, embrace it while it's there. When it fades, because you've chosen for more than that, you can still stay there. Yeah. Because you've also learned how to manage and to understand looks is not everything. Then you're not going to be able to look around and the what if doesn't hit you as much. Go somewhere, fine. Another beautiful woman is there. Great, there's going to be loads. Yeah. You're not married all of them, you married one of them. Right? Yeah. So when you're able to go there, you can see her, she might smile at you, but you're like, I don't know you. And that's the key thing. I don't know you, so you can't move me. You have beauty, she's got beauty. But I also picked her because of who she is more than how she looks. But God just happened to give me the looks as well.
Yes.
Do you get what I mean?
And I love that because I remember Kevin on stage was saying it. He was like, if you're driving down and you see a Bentley, and you're like, oh, that's a nice car, but you're driving a Ferrari. So am I going to leave my Ferrari in the ditch, put it in the road, chasing after the Bentley? You're right, there's no attachment to it. Like, all I know is I can see that's attractive. And that's, like, when you think about it, it just sounds so silly. Like, when you think about like that, it's like, what are we doing here? Like, what are we talking about here? What we talked about, doing your due diligence, testing the person. Do they have covenant capacity? Am I preparing? Life is so hard. Like, as a Christian, we're promised suffering. We're always going to be going through hardships. So it's like now, the hardships of life, plus you've got in the back of your mind that I shouldn't have done this. God told me no. I made the wrong decision. It's like, why do that to yourself? Life is so hard anyway. There's so much suffering anyway. Prepare and do your due diligence beforehand as well to minimize that feeling of regret.
Absolutely. So that what if, that's a question that you as a man need to be sitting with. Why am I saying what if? Unpack that. I promise you, if they're saying what if, it's because what if there was another better one? What if I could have upgraded in some way, shape or form? That's a you problem. And that's a flesh problem. Because the spirit does not have a what if. The Bible literally says, let your yes be yes and your no be no. Anything more is from the devil, right? The Spirit of God will tell you. Someone who is long-suffering, patient, kind, fruits of the Spirit is there. There is no what if. You've seen the fruit. It's been proven over time. That's who they are. The what if that you're asking is probably based on things that can change.
Exactly. And we're not saying their potential.
No. Go for what you want. Yeah. Absolutely. Embracing that it can change tomorrow. And if it changed tomorrow, do you still love this person?
Yes, exactly.
Great, that's permanent. And you talked about offspring earlier. That links to this. We think too, 1 week ahead, when we also need to pick someone thinking 50 years ahead. Like,
that my kid's gonna be ugly.
So, that's very important. That's extremely important. That's the way I was going.
I'm joking.
That's an important thing. However, what I really meant was, if you're trying to raise godly offspring, you're essentially saying, I want to raise children, also bear the image of the Creator. What's the image of the Creator when things are dying and not flourishing? He does not give up. He's not like, let me find another vineyard. Let me find another tree because all of these Christians, they're there, let me go. No, he's like, I'm sticking with Israel all the way through. Whether it's up and down, I picked you, I'm sticking with you. So if that's something which you want to be a fundamental principle that you teach your children, pick somebody where you're like, I can see that with you. I can imagine,
Yeah.
I don't know where you're going to be, but I can actually imagine myself, you looking different, maybe me looking different, and I can imagine showing my children, I love this woman. I've looked different over the last 20 years. This is my bestie, like this is dad's bestie, throughout everything. And once you show them that, they only learn by what you show rather than what you say. So if you as a man do not feel as if you can do that, that's the real answer. Be honest with yourself.
Now I want to just go back a bit to something else that we touched on, and you mentioned having healthy relationships with the opposite sex. That sounds like you're saying that men and women should be friends.
Absolutely.
Right? What does it look like to have healthy relationships and healthy boundaries with friends of the opposite sex?
They need to be like your bro. Like your female friends, they need to be incorporated. I think friendships, we need to incorporate everyone in our lives in similar ways. I think the aspect of talking about your life is good to share for friendship, because friendship is for that. And I think for men, we'll be able to respond better to women and serve women better, and women will serve men better if we're able to open up more of our lives in friendship level to understand how the other gender thinks about everyday things.
Right.
So if a woman's feeling upset, like today, one of my female friends called me and she was distraught about things happening in her life. She's not happy about where she is, what's going on, things are not moving the way that she wanted to. I actually appreciate it because it helped me understand further. Gus, at some point in your life, you like to think you'll be married. You've seen how your sister can be when she might not be upset about certain things, your cousins, your friends, a new friend, old standing friends, you could see a trend. I then feel like this is normal. I know what the norm is for women. So I feel as if those kind of friendships help me to prepare me, my singlehood, for relationship. When we don't interact enough, you're entering Mars. That's why I guess men are from Mars, women are from
Venus.
I guess why that book was written. Because you're literally entering a planet that you've never been to. Immediately, I've never read that book, but the title makes sense. So I think we basically need to go to visit like Venus and Mars in our singlehood often. So by the time you get married, it's like, oh, it feels like we're both from Venus, we're both from Mars. I understand what you lot do and how you work. But when we don't do that, you're entering into a space where, again, the last closest memory you have of a woman is your mum. That's not normal. Interact with normal women, they will set you straight. Yeah, they will. And I think your female friends who are sensible will set you straight. If you have those traits, they might tell you like, bro, you need to be babying a bit too much. You need to, and sometimes men need to be told that. So I think for women, same thing. When you actually get in a relationship, introduce everybody. If you can't do that, that's your last boundary to let you know that this is not your friend.
No, I don't know about that, Gus, because people will introduce you and they don't feel when they slept with that person or something happened or they just, no, you can see that this girl likes them. Nah, we're just my boys. So I don't know about the whole introduce them.
No, you should.
I think the boundaries should change when you're in a relationship. Like say it was a girl best friend or something like that. Then I think when you enter a relationship,
I'm not full girl best friend.
I'm not interested in that either. But I'm not interested in that either, and I don't have male best friends. But I would think that if somebody does have a female or male best friend, when they're dating somebody, that's not a thing.
Yeah,
but it can be hard if you're busy claiming, "Oh, this is my friend since I was 12."
I think it's something. I've got a friend like we've been friends literally since we were 12, since secondary school. We're still friends till today. One of my closest friends. This is not my best friend is no. She's a valuable person in my life for sure. But she knows that there's a whole list of my bros.
Yeah,
these are the guys. Yeah. And then obviously, if I'm in a relationship, then she will know, these are people in Gus's ecosystem. But we don't interact on a level where jealousy can ever occur.
Right.
Becomes rare. She even makes herself more rare. All of them make themselves more scarce because they're like, we don't want her to feel anything. We've been thinking anything because there's nothing here.
Yeah.
And when we see her, we embrace her genuinely so that she can actually assess the vibes and the energy, calm. That's how I think it's important for us to like manage these things on both sides.
I actually feel like if you're going to be friends with people from the opposite sex, make sure it's like in a group setting.
Yeah.
But I think the people that are closest to you, I agree, they should be the same sex people. Because nobody can love me the same way a woman does. You know what I mean? Does. It's not the same. It's like when you get married, you're still going to need your girls.
Yes.
A man is not going to understand you the same way a woman does, and vice versa.
Yeah.
So I agree with that. I love what you said about learning stuff about the opposite gender through those experiences. Like, I feel like the male friends that I've made, they've taught me so many things, like things that I stay with even today. Like the people I met at uni, like they taught me things that stay with me today that became like part of my mind and my framework. Like, don't shy away from those relationships of the opposite sex just because you don't want it to be awkward or if somebody likes you, then obviously expect someone
you have to navigate that one.
But it's like what you're saying, like, yeah, we're so different, but we complement each other and we can learn so much from each other, even in the friendship context. And the Bible talks a lot about the friendship context. It actually says that's the greatest form of love. It says no greater love than that, to lay down his life for a friend. You know, like, friendship is so powerful, and it's definitely something that we all benefit from, even from the opposite sex. We can learn so much from each other. What would you say is the biggest lesson, biggest takeaway that you would want somebody to take from the biblical framework for dating?
I would say probably the opening statement. I think on different days I feel like that I would answer that question differently, but I would say the analogy that I use at the beginning of the book is a key aspect for people to sit down and think about. When you go to IKEA or any company that makes something that you need to assemble, when you go home, there's two types of people. There's the people who think, I can do it, I know what I'm doing, I don't need to follow the step by step. It's boring, I've got it. It's an ego thing. The issue with ego is it's never a good foundation.
Right.
And you can get so far, you can actually get very far with a good enough ego. It might drive you to do a lot. But the question that I even ask in the book is this. When you finish assembling the bed and it looks perfect, and let's say you're a guy, and a woman comes and she's like, oh babe, that's a good job. What are those screws over there? And he's like, oh, we don't need that, they're spare, we don't really need that. The reality is, somebody made this bed. An engineer who's a professional at making beds. They have specified that you need every single screw because it's for the foundation of the bed.
Others wouldn't have included it.
Otherwise it it's like building a car and it's like, we don't need this, we don't need that. What do you mean you don't need that? A car's intricate and we need everything because there'll be danger on the road. They start sleeping on the bed anyway. Forget about the screws, they throw it somewhere else. They start sleeping on the bed, it's fine. It's going to be fine for the most part. But imagine 3 years later on into the marriage, middle of the night, everyone's tired, people want to have a good night's sleep. It's been a heavy day. They get on the bed, they're sleeping. Halfway through the night, the bed falls in and caves. Everyone is now in the bed, right? We're in the middle of the night. Then you start to think back. You remember those screws? This is what it's for, basically. That inconvenience never comes at a time that's convenient. That's why it's called inconvenient. That's like a marriage starting to fall apart, and that's how I liken it. When we do not follow the ways and the systems that God has given us, where He has given us guidance on how to approach things in the right way, eventually it may work for a short time, but when it starts to collapse, that collapse is so big. And it's hard for us to start adding in screws that should have been done 5 steps into the process, not 55. How do you start to screw it in when you can't even reach the gap? That's when you need God, even more than before. I'll tell somebody, trust the fact that God created marriage, let Him guide you, let the Holy Spirit lead you into how you should build your marriage, and do not get tired of any boring middle steps. Everything is important. Yeah. But trust that when the bed is done, you get engaged, you get married, and you start. You can be certain that, the foundations are strong. We're not going to fall in. You have to decorate the frames to make it more pretty over time, put different bed sheets, that's fine. But the foundation is there so it can do what it's made to do, which is hold you when you're sleeping.
Thank you guys for joining me at yours truly, Alison, 20-something-year-old's perspective. Thank you, Gus, for being on the channel. We all learned something. It was such a fruitful conversation. Follow me at my Instagram at yours truly, Alison. Follow Gus at
Gus.Nyberg.
And be sure to purchase your copy of the Biblical Framework for Dating at...
It's link in bio. You can find it.
Okay, so it's a link in your Instagram. Yeah. Right. Okay. And I'll put the link in the description box below. And I will see you guys in my next YouTube video. Bye!